In early 1900s, large oil reserves were discovered on federal property in Elk Hills, California, and Teapot Dome, Wyoming. The Taft administration set aside these oil fields for the United States Navy to use in case of a national emergency. In 1921, Warren G. Harding was inaugurated into office as the 29th President of the United States. Days later, President Harding appointed Albert Bacon Fall as Secretary of the Interior and Edward Denby as Secretary of the Navy. Shortly after the appointments, Fall convinced Secretary of the Navy Denby to let him take responsibility of the oil reserves in Elk Hills and Teapot Dome. Fall decided to allow his friends, Harry F. Sinclair of the Mammoth Oil Corporation and Edward L. Doheny of Pan American Petroleum, to lease the oil reserves. The leasing of the oil tracts was not illegal, but Fall was receiving loans and gifts from the oilmen amounting up to approximately $400,000, equivalent to $4 million today. Fall tried to keep the deals a secret, but on April 14, 1922, the Wall Street Journal reported that Fall had leased the Teapot Dome oil reserves to private interests without competitive bidding.
President Harding defended Fall, declaring, quote, "The policy which has been adopted by the Secretary of the Navy and the Secretary of the Interior in dealing with these matters was submitted to me prior to the adoption thereof, and the policy decided upon and the subsequent acts have at all times had my entire approval," end quote. Senator Robert Law Follett called for a Senate investigation into the matter. Hearings on the Teapot Dome oil lease began on October 15, 1923. The investigation was led by Senator Thomas J. Walsh. Many records mysteriously disappeared during the investigation, making it difficult to prove Fall guilty of any corruption. But in 1924, Walsh uncovered Doheny's loan of $100,000 to Fall. A week later, the Senate passed a resolution stating the leases to the oil companies, quote, "were executed under circumstances indicating fraud and corruption." Denby and Fall resigned that year. The Supreme Court in 1927 ruled that the oil leases had been corruptly obtained and invalidated the leases. Albert Fall was found guilty of bribery. He was fined $100,000 and sentenced to a year in prison. Fall became the first member of the presidential cabinet to be imprisoned for actions committed while in office. Harding had died on August 2, 1923, and thus avoided being dragged down with the scandal. Because of the national publicity, the Teapot Dome scandal became the first symbol of 20th century government corruption, representing American politics over the preceding decades. Another outcome of the scandal was the landmark McGrain v. DeHardy case, in which the Supreme Court established Congress had the right to issue subpoenas, compel witnesses to testify, and hold them in contempt of court if they declined. This meant that Congress could compel appearances and information from private persons and organizations and executive branch officials and agencies.
God's a ring, God's a ring, God's a ring on business. Digging up the tape with the shovel and the pick. It's a job, it's a job. Money mood rising with the plague and the front. Doing the mob, doing the mob. It's all over, it's all over, it's all over. And there's a leak in the boiler room. The poor, the lame, the blind.